Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now I've been having a blast replaying some of my favourite games on the PS3 lately. Sony's 7th gen console is a great way to experience titles that you may have enjoyed years ago, perhaps even missed on a very tight budget. Physical games can be found for next to nothing and are plentiful on used selling sites, local car boot sales and charity shops. The PS3 itself can be picked up for less than the price of a new game, for example, especially if you go for an older, fatter model like mine. This is my 40GB console that I bought second hand a couple of months ago. Of course, the biggest drawback of 7th gen consoles is the frame rates, especially the PS3 with its more complex architecture. I'm used to them by now, I sort of have to be. We can't do anything about the often sub 30 FPS experience that most games offer, but there's no reason why we can't make improvements elsewhere. A common recommendation in the comments was to upgrade the original hard drive with an SSD. We won't feel the full benefits of the extra speed a solid state drive offers here. This console is limited to SATA 1 interface, capping transfer speeds to 150 megabytes per second. That said, we should get quicker loading and installation times, less noise and lower heat output. My games collection is strictly physical, so we may not benefit as much from the apparent reduction to pop-in and faster texture streaming, though games that require a mandatory drive installation, something that became more common later in the console's lifespan, should hopefully benefit. I paid a tenner for this 120GB SSD, not a huge amount of storage by modern standards, but we're tripling the original capacity for a pretty small sum. The first thing I did was format a USB drive to FAT32 on my Windows PC before plugging it into my PS3. I then ran the backup utility to make sure my albeit limited data was safe. This isn't necessary if you have just bought a PlayStation 3 and have no data to back up, or you just want to start afresh. This will take a while regardless of your USB drive speed, and although I was quoted nearly 2 hours, I'd say half an hour to 45 minutes was a more realistic estimate. I don't have much on my console though. Remember to sync your trophies first if you use your PS3 online. Now I don't, to be honest. This is what I like to call my me time machine. I only play older single player games on this thing. Now I've chosen to do the backup first, as it creates a PS3 folder on the USB drive and makes the next step a teeny tiny bit more convenient. Next, I downloaded the PS3 update file from the official PlayStation website. This will download as ps3updat.pup. Don't rename it, just create a new folder called update, all caps, within the PS3 folder on the same USB drive, and move the .pup file there. If you're using a separate USB for this bit, then make sure that's formatted to FAT32 as well before creating a PS3 folder and an update folder within that. After this, it was time to say goodbye to my PlayStation's hard drive. Swapping this out is as easy as removing the plastic drive cover and single screw before sliding the drive bay out and removing the other 4 screws that hold the HDD in place. A 2.5-inch SSD will fit in here just fine, but remember to put the screws back in to hold it in place. After this, I plugged my USB back into the PlayStation and turned it on before panicking when I saw this screen, but all is well. This is the part where the system is going to be installed to the new drive, so all we have to do is follow the steps to get it up and running as before. After this is complete, we'll get to the next setup screen, which is the same one you'll see if you have purchased a formatted console or have formatted one yourself before. Here we can set the time and date, adjust the resolution and connect to a network if we want to. Job done. With the USB drive still in the console, I navigated to the backup utility once again, this time choosing the restore option. This took another half an hour. It was no quicker with the SSD as it's getting the data from the USB drive. And that's just about it. I noticed that the XMB felt snappier right away, not significantly so, but it was just a little more responsive when scrolling between menus and sub-menus. Actually booting to the home screen itself seemed faster too. There was a smaller delay between the PS3 logo and cross-media bar. I then tested out a few games, titles that require a mandatory installation. The first was GTA 5. The initial installation wasn't any quicker. It took just under 17 minutes with the HDD and SSD, but it's reading data from the disk at this point. I can't say for sure if pop-in was improved. GTA doesn't suffer as much as some games from my experience. In fact, it's always amazing to see how well this holds up, considering the hardware it's running on. Something that was noticeably quicker was pausing the game to open the map. This was consistently quick with the SSD, as we can see here. The original HDD was far more sluggish, with more variations in speed. I'd also recorded the time it took to load into the latest save from the moment we put the disc in the PlayStation. This was significantly faster now that the SSD was in here. It was just over a minute faster, in fact. Nothing worse than a long load time when you're eager to jump back in where you left off. Skyrim was also quicker to load, nearly 5 seconds faster. Not as much as GTA, but an improvement is an improvement nonetheless. My latest save took just under 36 seconds to get back into, compared to the 40 seconds we were seeing before. Venturing into towns and indoor areas will also take less time. Side by side, and there certainly isn't a night and day difference with pop-in. It still happens, but it did seem like some of the foliage came in earlier instead of appearing last minute right in front of me. One of my favourite games, Far Cry 3, was also snappier to get into, but this is a notoriously poor performer at the very best of times, often running with way under 30 frames per second. In fact, it's closer to the low 20s, and you can probably pick that up here. High-speed driving across the islands can feel a little jarring, and while an SSD upgrade won't resolve this, the slightly quicker loading times with fast travelling, for example, is a welcome improvement. Again, it's not a significant difference, but it is a noticeable one. Now, as I said before, an SSD is not going to transform the PlayStation 3 experience in 2026, but if you're looking for a quick and relatively cheap upgrade for your aging console, I'd recommend giving it a go. Now, apparently a 1TB drive is the highest you'll want to go with this to avoid stability issues, but games of this era, even ones that need to be installed, take up far less space than modern titles, so the storage will certainly go further. Another example whereby an SSD will probably make a noticeable difference is Rage. If you remember that game, it worked in a different way to a lot of titles where I think the textures in the game were essentially one big texture that would stream in as and when, and therefore pop-in was a little more noticeable. So I imagine a solid state drive could potentially help this one out, but let me know if there are any other clear examples that you can think of where a solid state drive will actually help out noticeably when it comes to the gameplay as well. And of course, let me know if you've made this change to your PlayStation 3. Thanks as always for watching, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.